plenty happening.
Plenty happening indeed. So let's deal with everything other than the trade bell first, and then we'll ring it.
Well, where do you want to start?
So the imagery at Melbourne training, so we've played Simon Goodwin's press conference, but then when they go out on the track, what's the image that's going to carry most vividly?
Multiple embracings between the coach, Simon Goodwin, the player, Angus Brayshaw, and then Angus Brayshaw to other football staff as well. So a real, not just figuratively speaking, but literally an arm around the player here whose future is obviously uncertain beyond the concussion protocols and whether he plays again this year. And I mean, it was amazing to hear his brother Hamish Brayshaw last night on Channel 7 talk about the brain scans and the future and the decisions that he has to make. And it just all goes into the mix to find I'm just not sure you could find a more, I don't know if combustible is the right word, but a volatile pairing to have a tribunal incident for the Maynard side of things and all that family's links to the Melbourne Football Club, the Brayshaw side of things, the history with his own concussions, but then, of course, his engagement to Danielle Frawley and how hyper, obviously, uber sensitive that topic is with that family. I'm not sure you could find a way where, the way lightning has struck here is almost freakish in a way between these two to bring us to this afternoon's tribunal hearing. Might just be the start of it as well.
So the intertwining of families and clubs stretches as far as Peter Maynard, who's Braden's father, is he the GM of footy at Casey, Melbourne's VFL affiliate? It's
amazing. Now, Peter was not allowed into the club last week, given Melbourne was playing Collingwood. Now, that's not unusual, I'm told, but anyone with a conflict at Melbourne is not allowed around for the main training sessions, if you like, just to remove all doubt, not to cast aspersions on the individual. And of course, Peter would be a supreme professional, I'm sure. But it's like if Todd Viney came down to watch Jack run around and they're playing North Melbourne. They just remove all doubt from it. So that's the situation. But it just goes into the mix, doesn't it? I mean, he's not allowed around at the club last week because they're playing Collingwood, of course, and they might play Collingwood again. And I think Peter Maynard goes back with Simon Goodwin as well. You'd expect they have a good working relationship anyway, but they go back to their Adelaide days. Corey Maynard, we know, played at the Demons not that long ago, played a couple of games as well. So the way these are intertwined is quite extraordinary. And I mentioned, the Frawley links, Brayshaw's historical episodes with concussion. The families are involved. I know that the Brayshaw family and the Frawley family particularly want a punishment doled out here as well. All this goes into the mix to create, as I say, a very combustible preview to tonight's hearing. And thank goodness it got there, because there was a time where it wasn't going to get there at all. And Laura Kane intervened and the AFL intervened. It's not unprecedented, but it's extremely rare. I know you've spoken about this before. So if the matchery officer, Michael Christian, has staked his job on it, then he's had his bluff called spectacularly, because it's going to a hearing that I think it always needed to go to. And I'm really looking forward to hearing Braden Maynard's side, and the evidence that he puts forward.
If that is totally accurate, it's a terrible misjudgment by the MRO. It's a terrible misjudgment, and he has been saved from himself by the executive at the AFL. Could you imagine us sitting here today and this had been waved through, whilst the full severity of the concussion, and there are just some matters that have to be heard and determined one way or the other.
There was a collective feeling in at AFL House. There was just no way they could let this go through untested. As you say, given how graphic it was, how severe it was. The player was knocked out for 2 minutes cold in the middle of the MCG, with everything going on, to state the obvious. There's no way that could be allowed to go through to the keeper. Braden Maynard might be excused this afternoon, but at least it's been properly tested.
Yes, the laws of the game have to be tested as they relate to tonight.
But it's a very emotional.
For everybody to understand. Everyone's taken a position, but you now have to hear how it relates. So for all the emotion involved, the emotion plays no role tonight. It's a cold and clinical assessment of how the laws relate to the action.
And the duty of care obligation, did he uphold enough of it in the moments after he missed his airborne smother attempt? And that's where they're going to spend a lot of time tonight. Feel for Jack Martin, who's going second. He probably needed to go first. It's a long night for Jack Martin.
You couldn't have him go. Unless it was
the
midday.
undercard always comes before the main event.
It has to land during prime time.
No interest like self-interest.
CBA updates.
It's done.
The ideal tonight is it lands between 7:20 and 7:40.
We got a real insight there, didn't we? I can tell you that the CBA's done, or more accurately, the player union, the AFLPA and the AFL have reached an in-principle agreement. It's been a huge, drawn-out negotiation. They always are, men and women, and the PA will now take this to their playing cohort for a vote, as is the normal process in regards to this final step. So it's a significant pay increase for male and female players, but it's, I'm told, a transformational CBA for the women in particular, who will reach their benchmark minimum salary of $70,000 by 2026, and there will be an increase, a stone-cold commitment to increase their season from next year, which is the thing that they've been chasing and has been elusive.
All right, let's ring that bell.
It's a smaller bell,
not a full-throated.
Oh, I had to request.
Bell
I had to request a little tinkly one today because we haven't gone the full. We can't. There's too much happening.
There's too much happening. All right, so let me play you Neil Baum, who was in the studio just a few minutes ago on the Dusty meeting with Dimmer.
Oh, I thought it was wonderful. Well, why wouldn't he? He coached him for how long, and he did all the things. They did all the things together, and it gave you blokes something to talk about. He must be going there to play, which is not true. I can guarantee you.
Do you think he would have asked him, "Would you like to come here and play"?
Oh, of course he would have. He's mad if he didn't. Any chance at all? But if you know he does, you'll know that he's not. That's not what he's like. He's not. He doesn't want to go at this stage. Go and meet a whole bunch of new people and fit into a new team at all. He's had a wonderful time at Richmond, and we're pretty confident that he'll spend his footy years at the Tigers.
Oh, that's interesting. I hadn't heard that, but that's not just for next year coming. That's forever in
He'll
Neil
spend
Baum's
his footy years at the Tigers.
So won't be happening to Gold Coast. I was coming in to say that anyway. I hadn't heard that. He was up there recently, as was reported, as was captured on camera. Dimmer is up there. They caught up for a beer. It would be pretty odd if they didn't. Now, Dustin Martin does go up there every year for a break. It's part of the reason why player and club have forever been linked. But it just can't happen, aside from what Dusty does or doesn't want to do, as Neil Baum mentions there. He's got a year to run on somewhere close to $1.4 million. So the Suns can't pay for him, and they can't trade for him with all the academy kids coming in either. It's just literally impossible. The Suns, for their part, have exhausted all options. But I would have thought it remains, acknowledging what Neil Baum says, a live possibility at the end of next year. It just has to at this stage. So that's where it sits at the moment.
We haven't had a trade bell together for a little while, so bring me up to speed with Ben Mackay.
Sydney have inquired. Essendon have long been keen. There's now a real growing feeling that Hawthorn are right there as well and competitive in the market. And this is all sweet music for North Melbourne in terms of compensation, which we spoke about months ago, because Mackay's going to be well paid and the compensation is going to be full tote. The Kangaroos are looking at Melican, Fisher, Dylan Stevens from the Kangaroos the other way. So they're going to lose Ben Mackay, but they might potentially gain a few more at the other end, and it all comes back to that compensation and a reloading of the draft. So no official decision from Ben Mackay yet, but the list of suitors is as long as it's ever been.
Brodie Grundy?
Yeah, this is an ongoing issue, given that his future's completely up in the air. And the interest, again, like Ben Mackay's, widespread. We know Port Adelaide's keen. Sydney is in the market for a gun ruck as well as a gun defender. And Melbourne, for all of that, would like to keep him. For Port Adelaide's point of view, I'm just not sure how the Power can fit them all in. So Grundy, Ratugolea, Zerk Thatcher, who Essendon are really going to dig in for. The Power have picks 37, 43 and 72. They traded out this year's first for Jason All-Francis last year. So it's really hard to see how Port Adelaide can get this done, but history says you find a way if the player nominates you. And then there's Travis Boak, who's been told he's done at Port Adelaide. He doesn't think he's done. So the question is, would he be willing to play elsewhere? And who would take him? A celebrated, loyal player at the Port Adelaide Football Club who's in the minds of the club, playing days are done. But Travis Boak, what will he look to do with his playing future going forward?
That's interesting.
And, a guy who... I don't think, no family, no wife, no responsibility, nothing tying him to the city of Adelaide. He has stayed. He's famously wooed by the Cats years and years ago in his prime. Would someone take him? Where would he go? And what will he do from here? The delicate negotiations.
All right. So our trade bellers, there's been some good form and there's been some poor form. Yeah. It's the poor form that probably amuses me most. So we've got this year's Coffee Cutter at at Essendon, don't we?
We do indeed. Now, we did state our terms off the top that the false starts, the DQs and the like, the fake news, the coffee cart man who told us half the league was touring Bombers HQ last year, we did say we would ring you. Now, we got a text.
Deliberate attempt to deceive.
Indeed. We got a text, Gerard, from 349 exactly a week ago saying, as we speak, Jamari Ugle-Hagan sitting with Brad Scott, Adrian Dodoro and some other guy at Cafe Lava in Warrnambool.
Or specificity.
Yes. Jamara is coming to his boyhood club. Signed, Couchy, Warrnambool. So I thought, nah, but what's a phone call? So I ring Couchy. Oh, friend told me, I'm not there, but my friend told me, he lives in Warrnambool, he told me he's just seen it. He could be stirring me up, but I think it's on. So I dismissed that. The next day, we get another text saying, quote, any idea why Dodoro was in Camperdown yesterday? Signed, Billy, Camperdown Servo. Hang on. Could this actually be real, Gerard? Are we on here? Multiple sightings of the famous Adrian Dodoro? Then we look at the number. You guessed it. The same number. 349 added again.
So Couchy, he was Couchy in Warrnambool and then he was Billy at the Camperdown Servo.
Love the Camperdown Servo. Respect to you, Billy, or Couchy, or whatever your name is, 349. Epic. Epic from you.
That's funny. So the deliberate attempt to deceive.
The deliberate attempt to deceive. Got me once, not going to get me again.
Nice. All right. Ping through your trade bell scenarios. I've collected some for tomorrow. And there was some gloriously complicated stuff came through on the email last week in your absence. So I've got to bring you up to speed on a few things,
Righto.
which I'll take the time to do.
We'll be better tomorrow. Yep.